Hello everyone, Vangeris here, and today we'll be going down a nostalgia trip as we look at the comments to my Dark Souls 3 video on its anniversary, or one of the anniversaries. It's going to be an anniversary of some sort. I know it's about 2 years old at this point. Hopefully this comes out on the anniversary itself, but if not, I've gotten incredibly lazy, so I apologize for that. So yeah, we're basically just going to go through the comments and react to them similar to my Dying Light comment reading video and my Dark Souls 2 comment reading video. I'm going to try to keep these in this format moving forward just because the Dying Light commentary comment reading was a lot faster just to do it this way, whereas the Dark Souls 2 comment reading took a long time to make just because I screen capped a bunch of things and wrote a script and all this. I put in a whole bunch of extra work for something that I can basically get across just by doing a simple recording and then uploading it. I also think it helps to add to the raw factor because if I spend too much time on these, then that's time I could have spent on the bigger videos. So just trying to make the most of the stuff that's just trying to maximize time, basically. But anyway, let's get into the comments of my Dark Souls 3 commentary. First one we get to is from Sentinel ICBM, who says, "Dude, I loved Matthew Matos's Dark Souls commentary, and I discovered your DS2 in this video. Thank you, sir. Can't imagine how much work goes into the scripts for these videos. It takes a long time, especially when I'm doing a bigger video like this. The Skyrim one has been a trip doing that in parts and breaking that up, so that's been fun. I can't imagine how long it's going to be by the end of it. So, oh man, reacting to the comments of that series is going to be interesting when we get there, but we'll have to get there when we get there. Then we got a commenter saying, see, Pedro Colisino saying, check out Acer. He made a Bloodborne also inspired by Matthew Matos's. I watched that video and I had a lot of problems with it. So check the ESAS archive, the Every Saturday a Stream archive, and you will see the Acer Aesthetics arc as one of the playlists. I spent a long time reacting to his Bloodborne video over the course of several weekends, so there's a lot of crap there if you want to check that out. Anyway, we're moving on to Imtiaz Mihad 1850, who says, "Holy crap, I'm hyped for this. Loved your DS2 commentary. Thank you. I appreciate the support. It does mean a lot to me that I can do this and people approve of what I'm doing." Now we get a comment from Julius Caesar 103, who says, "Okay, everybody, it's happening," or whatever the guy from The Office says. "Super pumped for this. Happy holidays, my man. You just made mine better." I'm glad it made yours better because all these comments helped to make my holidays better, you know. And then we got a comment from Knight Artorius, just putting L's and P's. I don't really know what that's for, but thank you for commenting. I don't really get it. Now we get to the Flood Form, who says, "I appreciate this video because I never played DS3, but going back and forth between this and Matthew Matos's DS1 commentary highlights how void of actual commentary this video is. It is way too much of, and this happens, then this happens, then this happens, which is a shame because I like the deep dives into the game design or player experiences or design intention, and the moments when you do that are great." This is one thing that I think is probably just going to be something I need to grow into as I get used to doing more commentaries and thinking about games in a more sort of not intellectual, but a more abstract way. Is I think part of the reason why Matos's videos are so good is because I believe at the time of him making his Demon Souls and Dark Souls commentary videos, he was much more into game design as a whole. And he's older than me, right? By like a significant margin. Like I think he's at least like a good decade or so older than me. So he's got a lot more experience, a lot more, and he just knows more. He's got a bigger gamer brain than me, right? So I think part of that is just going to come with the territory that I just don't know as much as he does. It also comes down to if I find something worthwhile to talk about in a game, I will try to write something out about it. But when it comes to certain parts of the game, it's just going to be I'm basically just trying to show the content as it is. And if I don't really have any commentary about a specific thing, like a set piece or a particular enemy or something like that, or a particular level, then I won't say anything about it. And that, I want to keep it in for the sake of the walkthrough portion of the video. But in terms of the analysis side, I understand why there are sort of peaks and valleys throughout the videos that I make, just because I do a walkthrough before I get to a heavy analysis section. And sometimes there are going to be sort of valleys in between all the peaks where I actually show like a hard opinion or state something that's like got like a hard evidence behind it to explain something or another. So I can definitely understand why there's the feeling of and this happens and this happens and this happens coming up in these videos. I think that while the video itself could be tighter, I do think it's important to include sections like that because it shows the game and all the sections of the game fairly, in my opinion. And I think that's something I want to keep going forward. Again, I understand that it's a little bit bloated because of stuff like that, stuff like this. Sometimes I'm not really saying much besides there's a thing here and it does this, and there's a thing here and it does this, and these two things go together to make this. I can understand why that seems very sort of bare bones and kind of void of commentary, but I do think it's important for walkthrough purposes rather than analytical purposes. Because that's one thing I've kind of worked on as I've made these videos is I want to make them a sort of time capsule of what the game is in terms of like the walkthrough section of it, and then analyzing it for what it is in the second half of the video, where I actually go through the analysis part of it. You know, they're built to be videos that have multiple purposes within them, and sometimes the ideas in them can kind of clash, and I do understand that. But all the same, I would rather include it. I would rather include it for the walkthrough section and just have it be a little bit boring rather than cutting out everything where I don't mention something sort of analytical in nature, right? I'd rather have those extra moments in just for the sake of showing the content of the game. But I can definitely understand why things can get a little bit monotonous at times if I'm just describing stuff on screen. So I can definitely understand that, but I'm trying to keep those in for the sake of people who have not seen the game. Anyway, let's move on to Chevelle3, who says, "It's here. You're doing God's work. We now have a Dark Souls 1 through 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro commentary. Thanks for your work, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad I've contributed to the pile, as it were." Now we go to James Brinsfield, who says, "You're doing the Lord of Cinder's work. I just started a new playthrough after not playing since launch, so this will be nice to listen to along the way. I hope you had a good run, James. I hope you had a good run, and I appreciate the comments." Now we get to Panama Hank, who says, "Just came across your channel a couple days ago. Love video content like this, and you're doing a really great job with what I've watched so far, man. I appreciate it. Hopefully I can continue to improve in either quality or in construction. So we'll see how it goes." Now we get a comment from Neverdusk, a very long one. Let's see, do I have this spread out? Yeah, I do. Okay. It says, "Although a lot of theories claim Ornstein went to follow the Nameless King, part of me wonders if he instead left to hunt him down. Ornstein served as I can't speak today. Ornstein served as the captain of the Four Knights of Gwyn, and even renamed. I cannot read today. I apologize. Ornstein served as the captain of the Four Knights of Gwyn, and even remained once the rest were long gone by the start of Dark Souls 1. He even allied with Smo, who was widely considered a repulsive being, in service of Gwyn, and the way he treats Smo as a fellow servant of Gwyn is respectful, as shown by his Phase 2 cutscene, which is true. I feel like it would have been outrageous for Ornstein to have traveled to put down the Nameless King. After Gwyn is defeated by the chosen undead and the Age of Fire is maintained, Gwyn's will would have been complete if not for the one thing he had failed to deal with, his traitorous son. Although he wiped his first son's name from history, he never managed to actually get rid of him. Ornstein going to deal with the Nameless King as one last mission sounds very on character to me. After all, in search of the Nameless King doesn't actually mean out of devotion. Artorias also left in search of Manus and the Abyss, and Kieran herself was an assassin. The Four Knights weren't just for show. Their goal was always to erase Gwyn's enemies and complete his control over the Age of Fire, one way or another. Even the entire undead conspiracy and Framp's supposed lies show how far Gwyn was willing to go to make history echo his own words. If Gwyn was willing to go so far to make the lies of the Age of Fire and the chosen undead come true, then it would also make sense that he'd want the lie that the Nameless King could not exist to also come true. So the reason we find Ornstein's armor may have actually been because the Nameless King or his allies defeated him. And that is something that I think is definitely like a thing to discuss. And and after reading that, I would kind of come to agree with that. I can definitely see where you're coming from on that. I think part of the problem, though, with sort of From Software storytelling is that in order to get a complete picture, you have to read like every single item description in the game, on top of like inspecting every single individual like place and placement of things. And that's so much detail that I feel like bogs down the whole storytelling aspect of these things. But I can definitely see where you're coming from regarding the Nameless King and Ornstein sort of coming here for whatever reason. But again, just thank you for the comment. I do appreciate the big comments like this because it does get people thinking, and that's sort of the main reason I do some of these videos, is just to kind of show content and talk about it and hopefully get some people thinking about different things. The next comment comes from Holy Terror, who says, "Never in my life have I ever watched a 6-hour YouTube video, but I enjoyed every minute of this. Great work, sir. Long may the sun shine." Thank you, and long may the sun shine for you as well. Next, we have Pyrokinetic RLZ, who says, "Wow, at the end of the video, there was a really good retrospective about Dark Souls 3 mechanics in comparison with previous titles. I appreciate it. I kind of like doing the ones that are sort of series based because then I can talk about the previous games in relation to it. And I had a lot of fun doing that with my Modern Warfare trilogy commentaries and with my Zombie Army series video. Both of those were really fun to make because of the comparison aspect. It's also interesting to compare and contrast things between games. Now we get to Stuff, who says, "Damn, it took me a long ass time to finish this. Like, I didn't want the video to end, so I just kept pushing off watching it, lol. I hope that's in a good way, but I appreciate it." Now we're going to get to Pain Sorrow. I hope your name doesn't entail what you're going through. But it says, "Love someone is making content about Dark Souls like this. Your overview of the game is great, and you provide an excellent guide. However, I'd like to see more of your personal takes on certain characters and aspects of the game. Lore speculation and exploring why the game is designed the way it is can improve your commentary and give you more insightful discussions. Either way, thanks for the vid." I appreciate the commentary and constructive criticism because I have kind of run into an issue with a lot of my commentaries where it tends to be sort of certain commentaries, especially of like Souls games. The lore is probably the least interesting thing to me personally about the games, and partially because that's partially because the games themselves are so hard to sort of understand. It's not very clear, and as far as I've found, like I've not found like a good breakdown of every single thing that you would need to make a commentary on the game without reading every single wiki page. And that's just one thing, is I tend to tackle games from them mechanically just because that's the main reason we play games, is to play them, not to experience them, but to play them. And so I definitely come from a more mechanically inclined sort of perspective when it comes to all the commentaries I make. So I could definitely see where talking about lore and exploring the design more could be advantageous in future videos, which I am trying to incorporate more, but it's one of those things where I'm kind of trying to have to break a habit, as it were, where I tend to just focus on mechanics so hard. But I'm trying to work on that where I can include more things, which hopefully appears in later commentaries down the road. But again, thank you for the comment and constructive criticism. Now we get to another comment from Julius Caesar, who says, "I'm glad you are so passionate about the game as I am, and I really like the analysis segment of the video. I always interpreted the new painting at the end of the DLCs to be allegorical by FromSoft. On the one hand, having the story meaning which you talked about, while simultaneously From taking all the lessons from the entire Dark Souls universe and using them to create another game world. Great video. Enjoyed watching it over these days." Thank you again for the comment, Julius. And yeah, I think Dark Souls 3 ending is the most interesting of the 3 Dark Souls games because of things like that. There's a in-universe reason where it's sort of a end that leads to a new beginning, but you can also take that as sort of a meta commentary on the Dark Souls trilogy ending and then From Software picking up and doing something else. Now we get to Whiskey Sour, who says, "Absolutely spot on quality analysis. This is the most reasonable, grounded, and serious conscious assessment of 3 that I've seen, giving credit where it is due while refusing to let the game get away with its flaws. The complaints about retreading DS1 content are generally nonsense because sequels are supposed to be connected to their predecessors. The changing combat tempo is very disruptive compared to the previous Dark Souls games, but I share your opinion that this was an improvement, and at the very least, it cannot be called an objective flaw. The handful of blatantly bad enemies are unfortunate, but hostiles have higher average quality than either DS1 and 2, so it can be forgiven. You nailed the real problems with the game. DS3 was damaged by overemphasizing Firelink, an overwhelming amount of gray, disappointingly linear progression, and the too long and too punishing attack strings from bosses. It's fortunate that Elden corrected the first three issues, but the boring and punishing boss design only became more egregious. I will be dealing with that in a video in the future. Stay tuned for that. It puts future From games on shaky ground, but we won't know how the changes and popularity of Elden will pay off for another few years. That's very interesting that this person mentions this here, because I am making a video about Elden Ring, and I have a lot of problems with Elden Ring. I actually have a lot more problems with Elden Ring than I actually have Dark Souls 2, which should say something given the length of the Dark Souls 2 video and how much I complain about in that game. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Anyway, he says, I wanted to love DS3. It is unfortunate that the flaws of this game all tend to make it feel boring and unfair, and I personally place it a step below DS1. Even so, Dark Souls 3 is an excellent sequel to Dark Souls, and a very impressive finale to this trilogy. It does make me wish Dark Souls 2 had been less of a waste of time, because I find myself wishing for a prequel or sequel to 3, a true second and third game in a series that competently juggles all of the balls that 2 dropped. And that's one thing that I brought up before is I think it would have been really interesting to see what would have happened if From Software took their time with Dark Souls 2 instead of basically putting one team on Bloodborne and another team on Dark Souls 2. I think Dark Souls 2 could have been on a level of quality of 3, but with the Dark Souls 2 assets and ideas, which could have made it a very interesting game on its own. Like I said, I think I'd be very interested to see what would have happened if Dark Souls 3 was sort of the Dark Souls 2, and what a Dark Souls 3 after that would have been. It definitely is something that would have been interesting to see. And also, thank you for that very long comment. From typing out long comments in like other videos, I can understand how much passion it takes to leave a comment like that. All right, now we're going to Super Kirby, who says, I wish you talked more about your thoughts on bosses and enemies. Like, what did you think of the boss design of the Great Wood? Was it entertaining? Only on certain builds? I mean, I think it's one of those things where gimmick bosses are very sort of hit and miss in terms of people that enjoy the gimmick, but it gets old over time, or people that don't enjoy the gimmick and just hate it outright from the onset. Like, for example, I think that certain gimmicks can become very engaging, while certain gimmicks can become very tedious on repeat playthroughs. Like the Yorm gimmick is one that I am not a fan of. Like, I'm not a fan of Yorm requiring a specific weapon to deal significant damage to him, right? And while you technically don't have to use that weapon to beat him, it is definitely your best option, right? But the placement of the weapon relative to the boss, and when the fight starts, and when you know to use the weapon, becomes very muddy and confusing, because the weapon's right next to him in the boss room, at the other half end of the boss room, right? Like, it's just very unintuitive for players to pick up that weapon and use it against Yorm. Like, almost everything in the game is telling you to not use it. I think Elden Ring improved on that gimmick slightly with the Rykard fight, where they have the blade as soon as you enter the boss arena. But even then, that gimmick is very tedious given how that gimmick works. And Rykard's fight, I think, overall is worse than Yorm, but they did the gimmick a little bit better. But I say a little bit with like an extra like little bit, like only a little bit better by like a couple hairs. But the Great Wood fight in general, I like that sort of gimmick where you damage a boss's specific parts. I wish they did more with it though, where you could, once you break off the parts, that part of the boss will break off entirely, and then their moveset will change. Right? I think that's a great design philosophy, and I know that other bosses in other games have done that before. I just think it's a matter of, I think they could have done something really interesting by having that. Like if you destroy all the egg sacs or whatever the sac things are on the Great Wood, that destroys like a limb, or that destroys some way it attacks. Like, it changes the boss fight and limits or changes its moveset depending on what you break first. I think those things are definitely something that could have been used to make the gimmick more interesting on repeat playthroughs, as opposed to, these are the weak points, just smack them down. It's the gimmick's not very deep, if that's a good way to put it. And I think that's ultimately one of the reasons why the boss kind of becomes kind of mid on repeat playthroughs. where it's not like technically bad. It's not really annoying to fight. It's just the gimmick gets kind of boring on repeat playthroughs because it's the same way of fighting it over and over. Is find the weak point, smack the crap out of it. You know, avoid whatever it's doing. It's kind of a boring gimmick the more you do it. Now we move on to Hobnoble Gend or Hobnob Legend. I don't know why I read that wrong. It says, man, seeing a video this long on a night shift makes my heart warm. I'm glad you enjoy it, and I hope you had a good night shift. Now we've got Jotaro Kujo, who says, as much as I enjoyed this video, it felt a lot more like a walkthrough and lacked a lot of the insight and critique that Matt Matos's videos had. I understand where you're coming from. I'm trying to work on that. See previous reactions to other comments previously. Like, I am working on that. Next is Red Wolfenstein, who says it's crazy how much of this game I missed after playing it more than 5 times when it comes to NPC questlines and hidden areas. Yeah, the NPC questlines in this game are very weird. Like, they're very convoluted. Next we get BBB Otwell MC, who says, just wanted to say thank you for making these. Dark Souls is my favorite game franchise ever, and I love this style. Listen to your DS2 vid multiple times to get through my day at work. Keep it up. I appreciate it. Now we get to Drenek, who says, okay, Mr. Vangeris, I just ended watching the video. Yes, I watched the whole thing in one go, and now I'm going to watch it again. Thanks for this masterpiece. I know you won't do more commentary on Souls games, and we have the Matthew Matosis on DS1, but your commentary is so good that I'll dream of a Dark Souls 1/Demon Souls or Bloodborne commentary. But that's it. Have a nice day. Your channel and your videos are amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I've actually given thought to doing a Dark Souls 1 commentary, but it would really only reiterate opinions I have that have crept up in other videos, or it would just sort of serve as a lower quality version of Matthew Matosis's video. So I feel like doing a Dark Souls 1 commentary for me personally just wouldn't do much in terms of like adding more content to the world, as it were. Like, I could do it, but it would largely probably be like Matthew Matosis's commentary, but longer, just given the way I format things. Next, we get Hefesto, who says, got to love how after years and years of playing these games, I still learn new things. Never knew patches could be summoned for Half-Light. Fun send-off to the character. I agree. I think it's an interesting send-off to the character if this is your last sort of Souls experience with him. Next, we got Lathren, who says, great video. Reminds me a lot of Matthew Matosis and Acer Aesthetics. One of those comparisons I'm very appreciative of. Again, see the ESAS streams for context. We get a comment from David Forbes, who says, thanks for making this, bro. You're welcome, bro. Now we get a commentary from Zarathustra, who says, thanks for this. This is contributing to better quality of life. Thank you for that. Your comment is contributing to the growth of my channel. Next is Mohammed Rayan, who says, just finished your DS2 commentary today. Talk about Fate. Great work. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Next is Patoni Strikes Back, who says, you can totally say the video was inspired by Matthew Matosis. Hell, before clicking, I thought it was one of his own. Really good job. Thank you. That may also just be because his thumbnails for Demon Souls and Dark Souls are very simple, and I pretty much just went with that simple approach as well. Also because I can't edit images worth anything. I'm terrible at them, so small, simple thumbnails. Simple thumbnails for the win. Next is Green Guy, I guess is how it's supposed to be said. This is an excellent piece of work you have made. Very insightful. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a decent bit. Next is Alex Bang, who says, tonight I begin my playing. You will be my guide through game. Thank you so much for this video. All best, friend. Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated. And I hope you had a good run through the game. Next is Aborin, who says, just finished watching it for the first time. It was good. I never got bored while watching or listening. I got especially invested when you talked about coming to previous Souls games to Dark Souls 3, since I didn't play Bloodborne. It was, still is, lol, quite rough. It's funny because because I first got into Dark Souls, I thought 3 was the worst because of one friend and other complaints online, but now, while I still understand why some people hate or dislike it, I wouldn't call him the worst. Can't wait to rewatch it when I finally finish DS3. Good job, man. I think it's even better than your DS2 commentary. Thank you. And I put a lot more sort of refined effort into the Dark Souls 3 commentary, because at the time of release, that was the last Souls video I planned to make ever, until Elden Ring riled me up enough to want to make a video on that. Although I'm not doing a commentary, I'm doing a different style of video on it, but we'll see. We'll see how it sort of comes and goes in the future. But I think the Elden Ring video will be the last one I do, unless Sekiro is particularly interesting to me and I make a video on that because I am playing it and trying to beat it. But we'll see how it goes. Next is Aldeco Tan, who says, "Thank you, man. I'm really not in a great mood today, so your video was like silver lining. I'm glad this was a silver lining, and I hope your day improved since then. I hope you had many good days after this day." Next is Kieran Webster, who says, "Wow, this is amazing. I've recently started with Souls-like games. I've done Dark Souls Remastered, Elden Ring, and currently playing Demon Souls and loving them. Gonna be doing DS2, then DS3, so it was really nice to see about lore and tips in a playthrough. Great video. P.S. I kind of find this cathartic." Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully it helps get you into these games, because even if I have problems with them, I still think they're worth picking up just to try them. Now we get Stuff saying, "Hell yeah, going to be watching this one all week. I hope you had fun watching it all week." Then we get Skids, who says, "I've been looking forward to this. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for the comment." We got Joe Shuttlewood, who says, "Been waiting for this, man." And again, I hope you enjoyed it. Now we get one from Juan Ceballos, as I assume is the way you pronounce it. "In regards to the level up system and hub as a whole, I think it's truly a design choice trying to capture that home base feel, and I think they did very well. I have Prithee, Be Careful burned up to my brain from all the time spent in the hub." Yeah, I think the hub in Dark Souls 3 it's very obvious they wanted to create a hub, but I think there could have been a more natural way to do that. Like, I'm very partial to the Dark Souls 1 hub just because you cycle back through Firelink Shrine over and over throughout the game without having to warp back there over and over and over like you do in the next two games, with Majula and the Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 3. Firelink Shrine feels like an actual hub location that would realistically exist. The Dark Souls 1 hub feels like an intersection between a bunch of different pathways, whereas Dark Souls 2 is very much, this is a starting point, go out through all the branches, and then come back to start new branches. And then Dark Souls 3 is even worse because it's just, here's the area, you warp everywhere from here, and you will warp back for mechanical reasons, but there's no real physical coming back here. It's just kind of a little bit of a letdown, but I understand where they're coming from that. Now we got Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan, I'm stupid. I apologize. Jonathan Garcia, who says, "I completed the game for this. Let's do this. Thank you. I hope you had a good run." Next, we got Edward Constantine, who says, "I love Grey Rat so much. I remember years ago when I first met him, and he was just such a light in the darkness. He's one of the only characters in the entire series that seems suspicious superficially, but never betrays you, never lies to you, and is always kind. On top of his great story, I also love the mechanics he brings to the game." Grey Rat is very interesting in the game, and I think it is. He's sort of meant to be sort of the anti-Patches in a way, which I think is very interesting given how Patches' questline sort of functions in the base game and how Patches' story functions in the DLC. I think it's a very interesting sort of counterpoint to between the two of them, between Grey Rat and Patches. The next comment is from Hateful Gaming, who says, "Forcing our character is become embered when we defeat a boss was likely done to force them into multiplayer, which is classic FromSoft." Again, I don't really like forcing that onto people. I wish they would just drop the ember and that'd be it. Then you could use it whenever you needed it instead of being forced to use it. Next, we get old Kadan, who says, "I watched the DS2 like a year ago. Why the hell am I just now getting this in the algorithm? Can't wait to finish this. I hope you finished it and enjoyed. Thank you for the comment." Next is Septum, who says, "For some constructive criticism, I would prefer you focus more on the environment and the first player experience, or at least comment on the structure of the levels. I'm 9 minutes in and I've almost lost interest because it seems more like a walkthrough than a playthrough. However, I'll continue watching because I really love this type of content and I hope it'll improve as time goes on." I mean, again, this is one of those comments where it's like, I'm taking you through the game, showing you what's in the game, and I make it clear that this is the walkthrough section, then this is the analysis section. There's a whole section that goes over the levels, right? Not every single section of every single level, but again, this is one of those things where I feel like people watch the video, forget what I say at the beginning, and then leave comments about, "I hope the whole video is not a walkthrough." And it's like, I leave timestamps so it's not a walkthrough. I keep making a note of it, and it's like, ah. Anyway, now we get to Ethan Darner, who says, "This was my first Soulsborne game. I fell in love after fighting the first boss. I went on to play all the others besides DS2, which I will get to soon. This one is still my favorite. There's just a consistency to the gameplay and level design and bosses that make up for how derivative this game can be. It also has some of the coolest bosses and prettiest areas." And to that, I would agree. I think the bosses are definitely, on average, a step up from the previous games. And I think the game definitely looks good, given the sort of new engine it's sort of built in. Next, we got Drenick again, who says, "Yes, yes, yes. This is the Christmas gift that I was waiting for. Let's go. Thank you for the comment. I always appreciate the funny meme ones. Now we get Ryan David, who says, "We'll come back to this later, times 17. Yeah, that happens in a video like this a lot. And I bet if you did a counter in each of these videos, there's at least like 10 per video. Doesn't matter which one it is. Just there's a lot. Now we get another one from Aborin, who says, "Nice, can't wait to see it. I still haven't finished Dark Souls 3, due mostly to my potato PC, but I'm still going to watch it." Well, I hope you get a better PC or play it on console at some point. Console will probably be easier for you. Now we get a comment from Mr. Kisscool, who says, "On the Embers, isn't rewarding struggling players better? Like it's them that need the help? If you can get through most of the game on one Ember, then awesome. If you can't, helping them out by rewarding them for passing a challenge by giving them a health bonus is good." I mean, I'd go back to what I said in the commentary where, you're rewarding players that are struggling, but not giving players a reward for being good at the game, right? Which is backwards, right? Like you don't like if you're a teacher and you're grading kids' papers, you don't give a kid a lollipop when they make a D, right? If you're like you wouldn't give a kid a lollipop for an A and also a D, right? You'd give them a lollipop for an A because they obviously passed, they understood the material, they did good. If they did a D, they need to like get some help and figure it out. You shouldn't reward people when they're like struggling. Now, that's not exactly the same sort of context as this game, but I do think that dropping an ember from a boss as opposed to instantly applying it would allow players to choose more. And I think that would help mitigate some of the difficulty, because when you automatically get that ember and then you die because of something stupid, you lose that ember. And that's one really big problem in Dark Souls 3 is that, if you don't want the ember to be, active, you're forced into it. And now you're deathly afraid of losing it, which I can understand the appeal of having that be sort of a tension factor. But at the same time, you're forcing me to do it when I don't want to do it, when the other games did not force me to do it. It feels like an arbitrary sort of forcing into using the embers for the ember system, right? When I think it'd be better if they just drop the item. It also allows you to keep embers past bosses, because if you beat the first boss in the game, get embered, and then beat every other boss, you don't get anything besides their souls, right? You don't get anything, and that's a major problem with replaying these games, is that if you've got an ember, you get nothing for being good. But if you are doing poorly, you get a free ember out of it, but it automatically applies to you. It's very problematic. I went through it in the video, and that's pretty much where I stand on it. So let's move on. Next is user KC4DJ8MB6M. I'm not going to assume that's a weird way of spelling some word with numbers and letters, because I'm very illiterate. But it says, "Will there be an Elden Ring commentary, like 8 or 10 hours video? Looking forward to it." Sadly, no, but I am making a video on Elden Ring, and I have no idea how long it's going to be because I'm still recording it. I've been taking far too much time recording Elden Ring, and I'm looking forward to retiring that game for good, because I started recording for that game around 600 hours total playtime in the game, and it looks like near the end of it, I'll probably have close to 1,000 hours. So I've probably put about 400 hours into the game just for the sake of this one video. So that's going to be a doozy when it actually comes out. All right. This next one is from Vitato, who says, "Hello. In September, I will probably start writing a paper for my bachelor degree, which I titled initially Educational Value of Video Games by Example of Melodic Motives of Dark Souls series. So I typed in Dark Souls interpretations to find any which I didn't see yet. The moment I saw a 6-hour video in results, I knew I'm going to be here for next few months. Lol." Well, I hope you did well on your paper. I don't know much about writing papers for your bachelor's degree, but I hope it went well. I hope you got an A+. I hope I contributed and helped in some way. Next is Cheaply Skate, who says, "You did it. The world is more complete." And I say thank you. Got another comment from Never Dusk, who says, "I don't know why YouTube waited 2 months to alert me that this video was up. The algorithm really did this video wrong, but better late than never. Now I can look forward to going through this over the next few days. Do you plan to make an Elden Ring video? Some of your early points, like those about bonfires not being used to level, remind me of where Elden Ring went from here." And then I left some comments saying I probably won't do an Elden Ring video as I'm not as invested in that game compared to the Dark Souls trilogy. Never Does says that's a shame, but I totally understand. I'm still making my way through this video, but I definitely look forward to it if you eventually did another one of these really long commentaries, Souls-like or not. And another guy, Alex Starostin, says, "I feel you. Elden Ring is inferior to Dark Souls and Bloodborne, in my opinion." Elden Ring has some things I will talk about in the future. No spoilers. All right, next is Squidbow, who says, "If I remember right, Great Wood goes into second phase after you destroy main ball sack." I forget if that's true or not, but I know that roughly around the halfway health point, they do the phase shift thing. Then we get Dome Please, for fuck's sake, who says, "How does this channel only have 3K subs? This content is absolutely high grade. Thanks for your effort and the upload. Thank you for the support. It means a lot. I'm still at 3,000, but I'm getting up there. Eventually I will reach 4K. Eventually we will make it to 4K. Next is Jake Enzuius, who says, "That feeling when you realize how many NPCs you never even saw during your 2 playthroughs. Great video. Thank you. Hopefully you can find more NPCs now that someone's laid it out for you." All right, Jonathan Garcia again, who says, "Personally, Dragon Slayer Armor second phase was still fun for me, despite the Pilgrim butterflies rearing their heads up. But that might be because so far they only shot small blasts." Yeah, I think Dragon Slayer Armor's just better off without them, just point blank. Just watch the commentary. You'll know what I mean. Next is TYB, who says, "Great video, even though I always hated the Havel armor plus one-hand weapon and shield combination appearance-wise." Hey, man, that's just my preference. That's just my preference, man. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed the video. My voice is getting hoarse recording this. All right, next is Schneemensch, who says, "Frida is pee easy. Just sneezing on her makes her flinch." I wish that were so. Next is Brandon Thomas, who says, "I just cleaned my room. I have a little Diet Coke. I took a shower, wiped my butt, and I am set for the video now to watch a video of Dark Soul comments from a guy named Vangeris. I am oh so excited for a good time. I hope I don't spill my Diet Coke." Hope you don't either. And he spilled it. It says Diet Coke, lol. All right, now we got the Haunted Hierophant, who says, "I like this, but I like your live Road to Commander commentary better, lol." Well, that's probably because I swear a lot more. Then we have the next comment from Benry, who says, "It's now Siegbrow. It's Siegbroy." It's Siegbroy? I don't know. Anyway, another comment from Schneemensch, who says, "There is no canon ending." I mean, I would argue that the DLCs infer that there is a canon ending. Any DLC that takes place after the main game tells you what the ending is. Like one of the sad parts about Dying Light: The Following is that it undermines the whole looking for a cure angle in the first game, because by the time the following happens, they've not found a cure and they've run out of antizin. So, basically everybody's screwed, All right, now we got Mark Nairn, who says, "Would love to see an Elden Ring one. Sorry, you're going to get a different video instead." Next, we get Leith Aziz, who says, "Fantastic analysis. At first, I listened to everyone else expressing their disappointment in the game and just took their words for granted. After playing it myself and putting some thought into the journey, I'm glad my opinion on the game has shifted much more positively. DS3 is just as worthy of being considered a piece of art as DS1. Both games are actually tied as my favorite of FromSoft's work. Well, until Bloodborne releases on PC." Well, we'll see what happens with that, but I kind of agree. Like, in terms of, I have a lot of fun playing Dark Souls 3, but I think overall, in terms of craft, I think Dark Souls 1 is the best overall package of all their ideas put together. I think it's got the right amount of everything that they've tried to do since then. Now we get a comment from Free Seraphim, who says, "I was very confused at first when people kept referring to Henri as a gal." I can understand that, because it's not very clear that Henri's gender will change based on who you are. It's a very strange sort of thing, but I guess it has to work within the sort of spouse mentality thing. Got another comment from She-Mensch, who says, "The Storm Ruler complaint is nonsense. Your gamer sense sees a very highlighted item in a boss room. use that item. And even if you don't have gamer sense, no other boss has an item in the boss room. This is a you problem, and this is not accounting for Yorm's very limited move pool. Except when I mention in the commentary that the Storm Ruler complaint is largely based off the fact that I have no time to look at the item and inspect it and equip it when Yorm is attacking me. Yorm is attacking you in the boss room. He will probably attack you before you can reach the item. Grabbing the item and equipping it, takes you out of the boss experience because you have to fumble through your inventory to unequip things so that you can roll consistently with what your build is built for, and when you have to actually use the weapon and find where it is. Right? That is the biggest problem with the thing. It's not necessarily just the fact that it's placed next to Yorm and that Yorm is very sort of simple with his moveset. It's that you have to do all of this in the arena while combat is happening. That is a problem. But thanks for the comment. Next is Sasori Pun, who says this is just a walkthrough, which if you look at the timestamps and listen to the intro, you would find that to be false. Next is Metal Gear Ya TV, who says selling rings. That's just stupid in my opinion. Even if you don't want to use them, there's the achievement of them for them, by the way. I know, but if you're not going to use a ring because it doesn't affect your build, then that's just free money sitting there. I mean, unless you're going for the achievement, there's no real way for, there's no real reason to keep them unless you're going for the achievement if you don't use the rings for your build. Now we got a comments with a timestamp. Says, damn, what happened there, LeMayo? PC moment. Let's go see what this was. But it doesn't feel as punishing as health reduction. Yeah, that texture glitch right there, or just like the black goo just spazzes out. We're very far down. There we are. The magic blob. Next comment says, first of all, I appreciate the effort. You obviously love Dark Souls. I'm sorry, but this isn't commentary. You're just narrating what you're doing in the game, throwing in some gameplay advice here and there. It's boring. Maybe if you'd framed it as more of a relaxed walkthrough, I'd have more accurate expectations. I wouldn't have tried to watch it. Don't go hollow. He literally does give advice, like a lot. No one said he did not give advice. This is just confusing. It's also a thing, too, where I highlight the fact that there is an analysis at the end. I'm really sick of people just watching the video without listening to what I say at the beginning. And here's another comment with a similar energy. Yobo Yajax says this desperately needs timestamps. And I say, they're in the description. And he says, wow, thank you. There you go. It's like, I've given what you need. You just need to look, Oh, I got another timestamp from insert edgy name here who says, so crazy people that play at level 1. Unless you need it to avoid an insta-kill, don't use it. Oh, yeah, this is talking about the heal after getting hit, then equipping this ring. Seriously, I can't stress how stupidly useless this ring is. Unless you need it to avoid an insta-kill, don't use it. Yeah, going over the ring that increases defense while your health is at max. I remember going over that ring now and being like, this is very useless except for very specific runs. All right, now we get Squadly, who says, love it, but not true anymore, lol. What is this? And make characters like themselves. But it is nice that they gave the ladies something special, too. Anyway, if you talk... I think it's just... Wait, not true anymore? What did that commenter mean with that? I don't really get what the commenter meant by that, because not true anymore, does that mean the Henri bit about... I mean, as far as I know, Henri still switches gender. I'm not quite sure what this refers to. All right. Now we get to Hyde Knight Gonthus, who says, wow, sounds like someone really doesn't like Dark Souls 2. It's like, well, I mean, I have a lot of objective problems with Dark Souls 2 and a lot of complaints about how it matches up compared to the other games in the series. I went over it for 7.5 hours. If you watch the video and take it realistically, you can see exactly why I have so many problems. Then we have CR, who says the spaz and special needs jokes are nauseating. And someone says, okay, buddy. Well, I mean, if you spaz out and you act like, someone with special needs, then I'm going to make a joke that you are spazzy and might need some special needs. So if anything, they're probably accurate. Then we get a comment from Hitman R, who left a timestamp. I don't know. After interacting with the bonfire next to him, this progresses Leon's questline. Okay, I don't know what the comment's for. This is the problem when you just leave a timestamp and don't have anything. Next we got John Doe, bunch of things, which just a lot of these names just feel like generated names. Ain't it funny how a game from 2016 is still better than copy paste ring? Not opinion, facts. That is a good point. Another comment from Ryan David, who says, sounds like another YouTuber who got their start on Dark Souls 3 and missed out on the birth of the genre with Demon Souls. I mean, I've played Demon Souls, but I don't really get what's the point of that comment. I even I didn't mention that I started with a particular game, but I started with Dark Souls 2, then played Dark Souls Remastered next, and then played 3. I played the games way out of order, and I've played Demon Souls. It's just I don't like playing on PlayStation. I don't like playing on console. So that's what I'm at. Next is 5,000 Seabass, who says 7,000 views. Criminal. Oh, I'd kill for 7,000 views right now. Then the last one is another one from Soggy Flip Flop, which is probably a timestamp for just coming back to the video. May have consumed an older version of the character the player makes in Dark Souls 1. I can't be sure, but Aldrich kills me with his arrow spam, so we'll have to run back. Well, there it is. There's all the comments and a death, so you've achieved the peak Dark Souls experience. So that was fun to go through, and yeah, I will be doing these for all of my other commentaries either a year or so after the videos come out. If it's like a broken up series like the Skyrim one is, I will probably just do one big one on the year anniversary of the final video, but we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'd just like to thank you all for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, every other thing you wonderful people do, and I will see you guys later.